The viral video shook the world in less than an hour. It showed a man, calm and composed, being violently ripped from his first-class seat, his head slamming against the armrest, while passengers screamed in horror. The airline staff sneered, calling him a security threat, just because he wore a hoodie and refused to give up the seat he paid for. They thought they were just removing a nobody. They thought they were clearing space for a VIP. But they didn't know that the man bleeding on the tarmac was the very person holding the lifeline to their company's survival. By the time the stock market opened the next morning, SkyKing Airlines wouldn't just lose a passenger. They were about to lose $4 billion in 45 minutes. This is the story of the most expensive mistake in aviation history. The rain lashed against the reinforced glass of Chicago O'Hare International Airport, turning the tarmac into a blur of gray and steel. Inside the terminal, the air was thick with the humidity of too many bodies and the frantic energy of delayed flights. But inside the first-class cabin of SkyKing Airlines, Flight 919, bound for London, it was quiet. Marcus Thorne sat in seat 1A. He was a man who knew the value of silence. At 42, Marcus had the kind of face that gave nothing away, eyes that were sharp and observant, resting beneath the hood of a charcoal grey sweatshirt that had seen better days. He wore faded denim jeans and a pair of beat-up sneakers that were arguably older than the junior flight attendant checking the overhead bins. To the casual observer, Marcus looked like a mistake. In a cabin filled with tailored Italian suits, Rolex watches, and the overpowering scent of designer perfume, Marcus looked like someone who had taken a wrong turn at the boarding gate. He adjusted his seat, declining the pre-flight champagne offered by a flight attendant who barely made eye contact with him. Her name tag read Tiffany. She had smiled warmly at the man in 1B, a portly fellow in a pinstripe suit who was loudly discussing his golf handicap on his phone, but her smile had vanished the moment she turned to Marcus. "Just water, please," Marcus had said, his voice deep and polite. Tiffany had sighed, a short, sharp sound through her nose, before dropping a plastic cup on his console without a napkin. "We're saving the glass for full service after takeoff," she muttered, before rushing back to refill Pinstripe's crystal flute. Marcus didn't mind. He wasn't there for the service. He was there for the sleep. It had been a grueling 72 hours. As the lead architect and majority shareholder of Thorne Logistics, a proprietary AI-driven shipping infrastructure, he had just finished a marathon negotiation in Chicago. The deal he was flying to London to sign was not public knowledge yet. It was a merger that would save a struggling legacy airline from bankruptcy. That airline was SkyKing. Marcus closed his eyes, leaning his head back. He technically owned a private jet, a Gulfstream G650, but it was currently grounded in Seattle for maintenance. He didn't mind flying commercial. He liked seeing how the product worked on the ground level. He liked seeing how the employees treated the customers. So far, he wasn't impressed. He pulled his noise-cancelling headphones over his ears, drowning out the drone of the engines and the chatter of the cabin. He just wanted to sleep. He had the window seat, the one he had specifically booked 3 weeks ago, because he needed to lean against the wall to rest his bad shoulder, an old injury from his time in the Marines. He was drifting off, finally finding a moment of peace, when a sharp tap on his shoulder jolted him awake. Marcus slid the headphones down. "Excuse me?" Standing in the aisle was a woman who looked like she had been manufactured in a factory that specialized in entitlement. She was wearing a white fur coat that was impractical for travel, oversized sunglasses, and was holding a Louis Vuitton carrier bag that yapped. Behind her stood the chief purser, a tall man with slicked-back hair and a name tag that read Greg. Greg looked exhausted and annoyed, but his annoyance didn't seem directed at the woman in the fur. It was directed at Marcus. "Sir," Greg said, his tone lacking any genuine courtesy. "I need to see your boarding pass." Marcus blinked, disoriented. I showed it at the gate. And to the attendant at the door. "Show it again," the woman snapped. She pulled her sunglasses down, revealing ice-blue eyes that scanned Marcus with open disgust. "He's obviously in the wrong seat, Greg. Look at him. He probably sneaked in while you were busy helping actual customers." Marcus felt the heat rise in his chest, but he tamped it down. He reached into his hoodie pocket, pulled out his phone, and brought up the digital pass. He held it up. Marcus Thorne, Flight 919, Seat 1A, First Class. Greg peered at the screen, frowning as if he were trying to spot a forgery. "It's a valid pass," Marcus said calmly. "Is there a problem?" "Yes, there is a problem," the woman interrupted, stepping closer. Her perfume was cloying, a heavy floral scent that made Marcus want to sneeze. "The problem is that my seat is 1B, and my husband is in 2B. But I require the window seat. My emotional support animal," she gestured to the yapping bag, "gets anxious in the aisle. It needs to look out the window." Marcus looked at the woman, then at Greg. "I booked this seat 3 weeks ago. I have a shoulder injury. I need the window to sleep." "Sir," Greg said, his voice dropping an octave, becoming authoritative. "Mrs. Beatrice Calloway is a Diamond Medallion member with Sky King. We accommodate our priority passengers." "I paid full fare for this ticket," Marcus said, his voice steady. "I'm not moving." Beatrice Calloway let out a dramatic gasp, turning to the other passengers. "Can you believe this? He's refusing to help a distressed animal? And look at him. He makes the whole cabin feel unsafe." The man in the pinstripe suit in 2A chimed in, not looking up from his phone. "Just move, buddy. Let the lady have the seat. Go back to coach where you belong." Marcus looked at Greg. "I'm not moving to coach. I'm not moving at all." Greg straightened his blazer. "Sir, I'm asking you politely. Move to seat 24C. It's an economy plus seat. We will give you a voucher for $50. $50? Marcus almost laughed. The ticket had cost him $6,000. "No." Greg's face hardened. "If you don't cooperate, I will have to classify this as a disturbance." "A disturbance?" Marcus asked, incredulous. "I am sitting in the seat I paid for. She is the one standing in the aisle shouting." "I am not shouting," Beatrice shrieked. "I am being threatened. Greg, he's threatening me. I feel threatened." "Sir," Greg said, louder now, ensuring the whole cabin could hear, "you are upsetting the other passengers. Grab your bag and follow me to row 24. Now." "No," Marcus said. He put his headphones back on. It was a gamble, a test. He wanted to see how far they would go. He wanted to see if Sky King, the company he was about to pour $2 billion into, was rotten to the core. Greg reached out and yanked the headphones off Marcus's head. The plastic snapped. "That," Greg hissed, "was a mistake." Marcus looked at his broken headphones. Then he looked up at Greg. The calm in Marcus's eyes was gone, replaced by a cold, dark intensity. "You're right, Greg," Marcus whispered. "You just made a very big mistake." The atmosphere in the cabin shifted instantly. The snapping of the headphones was a violent act, a crossing of the line. Several passengers in the rows behind stopped what they were doing. A young teenager in row 3, sensing the drama, subtly lifted his phone, angling the camera through the gap in the seats. "You just destroyed my property," Marcus said, his voice dangerously low. "I am enforcing flight safety protocols," Greg shouted, his face flushing red. He was losing control of the narrative, and he knew it. He needed to assert dominance quickly. "You are failing to comply with crew instructions. That is a federal offense. Your instruction was for me to give up a seat I legally purchased because this woman," Marcus gestured to Beatrice, "prefers the view. That is not a safety protocol. That is preferential treatment based on bias. Don't you dare talk about bias to me, Beatrice yelled. My husband is personal friends with the Vice President of Operations. Do you know who you're dealing with? I don't care who you are, Marcus said, and I don't care who your husband knows. Get the manager, Beatrice commanded Greg. Get Bradford down here, now. Greg nodded, glaring at Marcus. Stay right there. I'm not going anywhere, Marcus said dryly. That's the whole point. Greg stormed up the jet bridge toward the gate desk. Beatrice remained standing over Marcus, clutching her dog bag. The dog, a small white poodle mix, was now barking rhythmically. You're going to jail, Beatrice sneered, leaning down so only Marcus could hear. You think you can just walk onto a plane like this, looking like a thug, and sit next to decent people? We know you don't belong here. Marcus looked at her. He saw the fear behind her aggression. It was the fear of equality, the fear that money and status might not always buy your way out of basic decency. Mrs. Calloway, Marcus said, I'm going to give you one chance to sit down in your assigned seat and let this go. If you escalate this, you are going to regret it for the rest of your life. Beatrice laughed, a shrill, brittle sound. Is that a threat? It's an advisory, Marcus replied. Moments later, the heavy thud of footsteps came down the aisle. Greg returned, trailing a man who looked like a bulldog in a cheap polyester suit. His ID badge swung from his neck. Bradford Haynes, terminal manager. Bradford was sweating. He had a flight delayed by 20 minutes, a mechanical issue on another gate, and now this. He took one look at the scene. The wealthy, fur-clad Beatrice Calloway, standing indignant, and the black man in a hoodie sitting in 1A. To Bradford, the math was simple. Calloway meant money. The guy in the hoodie meant trouble. What's going on here? Bradford demanded, his voice booming. He's refusing to move, Bradford, Beatrice cried, playing the victim perfectly. He threatened me, and he physically intimidated Greg. Bradford turned his watery eyes onto Marcus. Is this true? Check the cameras, Marcus said, pointing to the small lens above the cockpit door. Or ask the other passengers. I haven't left my seat. Greg broke my headphones. Bradford didn't look at the camera. He didn't ask the passengers. He looked at his watch. Sir, I don't have time for a debate. The captain wants to push back. You are delaying this flight. You are disrupting the operation of this aircraft. I am sitting in my seat, Marcus repeated, his patience thinning. I am the only one calm here. We have a policy, Bradford lied smoothly. Sky King reserves the right to reassign seating for operational needs. We need seat 1A. You have been reassigned to 24C. Why? Marcus asked. Why do you need 1A specifically? Operational necessity, Bradford stonewalled. Now grab your bag. If you don't walk off this plane on your own 2 feet, I will have law enforcement drag you off. Marcus looked at Bradford. He saw the prejudice in the man's eyes, the assumption that Marcus was nobody, that he had no recourse, that he couldn't afford a lawyer, let alone fight a corporation. Marcus slowly reached into his pocket. Hands where I can see them, Bradford shouted, jumping back. Marcus moved slowly, pulling out a sleek black business card. It was heavy, made of metal. It had no phone number, just a logo, a stylized T, and a name. Marcus Thorne, CEO, Thorne Logistics. He held it out to Bradford. Call your CEO, Arthur Pendleton, Marcus said. Tell him you're about to kick Marcus Thorne off his plane. Ask him if that's a good idea. Bradford didn't even look at the card. He slapped Marcus's hand away. The metal card clattered to the floor. I don't care if you're the King of England, Bradford spat. You're off this flight. He turned to Greg. Call airport police. Tell them we have a hostile passenger refusing to deplane. Marcus watched the card lying on the blue carpet. He didn't pick it up. "Okay," Marcus said softly. "You made your choice." The arrival of the airport security officers was not subtle. 3 of them boarded the plane, bulky men in tactical vests, their hands resting near their belts. They weren't the actual police. They were a contracted security firm known for being rough, underpaid, and undertrained. The lead officer, a man named Kowalski, looked at Bradford. "This the guy?" "That's him," Bradford said, crossing his arms. "Trespassing, disturbing the peace, refusing a direct order from the flight crew." Kowalski loomed over Marcus. "All right, buddy. Let's go. Don't make this hard." "I have done nothing wrong," Marcus said, gripping the armrests. "I have a ticket. I have rights." "Your ticket is a contract," Kowalski droned, reciting a script. "The airline can revoke it at any time. Right now, you're trespassing." "I'm not leaving," Marcus said. Kowalski nodded to the other 2 officers. "Grab him." It happened fast. The officer on the left grabbed Marcus's arm, the bad one, the one with the torn rotator cuff from his service days. He wrenched it upward. Marcus let out a guttural yell of pain. "My shoulder! Watch the shoulder! Stop resisting!" the officer screamed, twisting the arm harder. "I'm not resisting," Marcus gritted out, pain blinding him. The second officer grabbed Marcus by the neck of his hoodie. They yanked him forward. Marcus's seatbelt was still fastened. The force of the pull slammed his upper body back against the seat, then forward again as the belt dug into his waist. "Unbuckle him!" Kowalski shouted. Beatrice Calloway was watching with a satisfied smirk, holding her phone up, recording the justice being served. But behind her, the phone in row 3 was also recording, and the phone in 2A and 4C. The officer fumbled with the buckle, clicked it open, and then both men heaved. They dragged Marcus out of the seat like a sack of meal. His legs hit the aisle armrest. His head cracked against the overhead bin as they lifted him. "Hey, easy!" a woman in row 4 shouted. "He's not fighting back! Stay back!" Greg the purser yelled at the passengers. "This is a security matter." They didn't let Marcus walk. They dragged him. One officer had him by the wrists, pulling his arms high behind his back, a move designed to inflict maximum pain compliance. The other had him by the back of his jeans. Marcus's glasses fell off. His shoe scraped along the floor, coming loose. They hauled him down the narrow aisle of the first-class cabin. As they passed Beatrice, she audibly scoffed. "Finally!" They reached the aircraft door. The jet bridge floor was uneven. The officers didn't care. They threw him forward. Marcus stumbled, unable to catch himself with his wrenched arms, and hit the metal wall of the jet bridge face first. Blood burst from his nose. "Get up!" Kowalski barked, kneeing him in the thigh. Marcus lay there for a second, the taste of copper in his mouth, the throb in his shoulder, agonizing. He looked up. Bradford Haynes was standing over him, smiling. "Next time," Bradford sneered, "buy a ticket on a bus. That's where you belong." Marcus spat a mouthful of blood onto the floor. He looked at Bradford, memorizing his face. He memorized the badge number of the officer. He memorized the look of triumph on Greg's face. He slowly stood up, his hand shaking, not from fear, but from adrenaline. "You have no idea," Marcus whispered, his voice thick with blood, "what you just started. Get him out of here." Bradford waved his hand. As they marched Marcus up the jet bridge toward the holding cell, his phone, which he had managed to keep gripped in his hand, buzzed. It was a notification from his assistant. Subject: Merger meeting. Message: The board is ready for you tomorrow at 9 a.m. Mr. Pendleton is eager to close the deal. Marcus wiped his nose on his sleeve. There would be a meeting tomorrow, all right? But it wasn't going to be the one Arthur Pendleton was expecting. The holding cell at O'Hare Airport was cold, smelling faintly of bleach and despair. Marcus sat on a metal bench, holding a bag of ice against his shoulder. His lip was swollen, and dried blood crusted beneath his nose. They had charged him with trespassing and resisting arrest. They had taken his phone, his belt, and his shoelaces. He was treated like a common criminal. But outside those concrete walls, the world was catching fire. It started with a user named Leo the Lion 99. The teenager in seat 3A hadn't just recorded the incident. He had live-streamed it to TikTok. He titled the video, "Sky King breaks passenger's face for no reason." In the first 10 minutes, it had 500 views. By the time Marcus was being booked, it had 50,000. By the time Marcus was sitting in the cell, it had hit 4 million. The video was damning. It showed everything. It showed the calm Marcus sitting in his seat. It showed Beatrice Calloway screeching about her dog. It showed Greg the purser sneering. And most crucially, it showed the moment Marcus was brutally slammed face first into the jet bridge wall while handcuffed. The internet detectives went to work. Within an hour, they had identified Beatrice Calloway. They found her Instagram, filled with photos of her charity work and her husband's yacht. The comment section turned into a war zone. But the real bombshell dropped when a financial journalist in New York, scrolling through Twitter, paused on the video. He squinted at the man in the hoodie. He replayed the part where the man tried to hand the manager a metal business card. The journalist zoomed in. He took a screenshot. He ran it through facial recognition software. His coffee cup dropped from his hand. He immediately tweeted, "Sky King Airlines just beat up Marcus Thorne, the Marcus Thorne. The man rumored to be buying their debt tomorrow. Rip your stock price." That tweet was the match that lit the powder keg. Back in the holding cell, the heavy metal door creaked open. A different police officer walked in. This wasn't the grunt work security. This was the station commander, a man with grey hair and a look of absolute terror on his face. He was holding Marcus's shoes and his phone. "Mr. Thorne," the commander said, his voice trembling slightly. "There seems to have been a catastrophic misunderstanding." Marcus didn't stand up. He just looked at the man. "Is there?" "The charges have been dropped," the commander said, rushing forward to unlock the cell. "The airline withdrew the complaint. The district attorney called me personally. Sir, you are free to go. We can have a car take you to the hospital immediately." Marcus stood up slowly, wincing as his shoulder popped. He took his phone. It was vibrating non-stop. 400 missed calls. 2,000 emails. "I don't need a hospital," Marcus said, his voice raspy. "I need my suit." "Your suit, sir?" "My checked luggage," Marcus said. "Get it off the plane. I have a meeting in the morning." "Sir," the commander said, "the plane took off. It's halfway to London." Marcus let out a low, cold laugh. "Of course it is." He looked at the commander. "Then I need to make a call to my pilot. Get my jet ready. I'm going back to New York. The meeting has been moved." "Moved?" "Yes," Marcus said, stepping out of the cell and into the harsh hallway light. "They think the meeting is about saving their company. I need to be there to tell them it's actually an execution." The next morning, 8:55 a.m., Sky King Global Headquarters, New York City. The boardroom on the 50th floor was a fortress of glass and mahogany. The view of the Manhattan skyline was breathtaking, symbolizing the height of corporate power. But inside the room, the air was thin and panicked. Arthur Pendleton, the CEO of Sky King, paced the length of the room. He was a man who had inherited the airline from his father and had spent 10 years running it into the ground. He needed this merger. Without Thorne Logistics' capital injection, Sky King would be insolvent by Friday. "Why isn't he answering his phone?" Arthur snapped at his assistant. "I don't know, sir," the assistant stammered. "We've tried his office. We've tried his personal line. It goes straight to voicemail." Around the long table sat the board of directors, 12 men and women in expensive suits, looking nervous. "Maybe he got cold feet," one board member suggested. "The fuel prices are up." "He won't back out," Arthur insisted, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Thorne is a shark, but he wants our transatlantic routes. He needs us." Arthur didn't know about the video. He had been in meetings with lawyers all night, his phone off, preparing the merger documents. His PR team had been trying to reach him for 3 hours, but his secretary had been instructed, "No interruptions until the deal is signed." At 9:00 a.m. sharp, the double doors to the boardroom didn't open. 9:05 a.m. Silence. 9:10 a.m. Arthur slammed his hand on the table. "Where the hell is he?" Then the elevator dinged in the hallway. The heavy oak doors swung open, but it wasn't the polished, suit-wearing tycoon they expected. Marcus Thorne walked in. The room fell into a stunned silence. Marcus was wearing a fresh, sharp black suit, tailored to perfection. But the suit couldn't hide the damage. His left arm was in a black medical sling. His lip was swollen and purple. A dark bruise bloomed across his cheekbone, and there was a distinct cut across the bridge of his nose. He looked like he had been in a street fight. And he looked furious. He didn't say a word. He walked to the head of the table, opposite Arthur. He didn't sit down. He threw a file folder onto the mahogany table. It slid across the surface and stopped right in front of Arthur. "Marcus?" Arthur asked, his voice wavering. "My God, what happened to you? Were you in a car accident?" Marcus stared at him. The silence stretched, heavy and suffocating. "No, Arthur," Marcus said. His voice was calm, but it carried a weight that made the water in the glass pitchers tremble. "I wasn't in a car accident. I was on Sky King Flight 919. Arthur blinked, confused. I don't understand. You flew commercial. Why didn't you tell us? We would have rolled out the red carpet." "Oh, you rolled out something all right," Marcus said. "You rolled out the airport police." Marcus reached into his pocket and pulled out a remote clicker. He pointed it at the giant presentation screen behind Arthur. "I think you should see the red carpet treatment your staff gave me." Marcus clicked the button. The screen flickered to life. It wasn't a PowerPoint about profit margins. It was the shaky, vertical footage from Leo the Lion 99. The sound filled the acoustic-proof room, the screeching of Beatrice Calloway, the arrogance of Greg, the sound of the officer snapping Marcus's arm, the sickening thud of his head hitting the wall. The board members gasped. One woman covered her mouth. Arthur Pendleton went pale, his skin turning the color of old paper. The video ended with the close-up of Marcus bleeding on the floor while Bradford Haynes sneered at him. Marcus clicked the screen off. The room was dead silent. "That," Marcus said, pointing a finger at the black screen, "happened yesterday. I was sitting in seat 1A. I was coming here to give you $2 billion. I was coming here to save your jobs." He leaned forward, his eyes locking onto Arthur's. "Your terminal manager, Bradford Haynes, told me I belonged on a bus. Your chief purser destroyed my property, and your diamond passenger called me a thug." "Marcus," Arthur stammered, his hands shaking. We didn't know. We can fix this. We will fire them. All of them. We will issue a public apology. We will give you free flights for life." "Free flights?" Marcus laughed. It was a terrifying sound. "Arthur, I don't want free flights. I own my own jets." He tapped the file folder in front of Arthur. "That folder contains the merger agreement we were supposed to sign today." Arthur reached for it, hope flickering in his eyes. "So, we can still move forward? We can settle this?" "Open it," Marcus commanded. Arthur opened the folder. It was empty. "The deal is dead, Arthur," Marcus said softly. I'm not buying Sky King. You can't, Arthur whispered. If you don't sign, the banks call our loans on Monday. We'll go bankrupt. I know, Marcus said, but I'm not just walking away. You see, I realized something while I was sitting in that jail cell yesterday. Marcus turned to face the board. I realized that if you treat a man who is about to give you $2 billion like garbage, imagine how you treat the single mother saving up for a holiday, or the elderly couple visiting their grandkids. Your culture is rot, and rot needs to be cut out. Marcus pulled out his phone. 5 minutes ago, Marcus announced, I initiated a short sale on Sky King stock. I didn't buy your company, Arthur. I bet against it. Arthur stood up, knocking his chair over. You're shorting us. You're killing us. I'm not killing you, Marcus said, turning to leave. The market is. And the market opens in, he checked his watch. 3, 2, 1. The opening bell rang. Usually Sky King, ticker SKG, traded at $42 a share. At 9:31 a.m., the news of the failed merger hit the wire. At 9:32 a.m., the viral video was picked up by CNN, Fox, and BBC. The headline ran across the bottom of every screen in Times Square. Billionaire CEO assaulted by airline he intended to buy. The reaction was instantaneous and violent. Traders on the floor screamed, "Sell!" The algorithms kicked in. 42 Naurus, 35.50, 28 Sorzals. In the boardroom, Arthur Pendleton watched the stock ticker on the wall monitor with horror. It was a bloodbath. Red arrows pointed down, down, down. "It's crashing!" the CFO screamed. "We've lost 30% in 2 minutes." Marcus stopped at the door. He didn't look back. "It's going lower." By 10 a.m., Sky King was trading at 12,000 By 10:30 a.m., the major sponsors, credit card companies, fuel suppliers, announced they were pausing contracts pending an investigation into the airline's safety and discrimination policies. But the karma wasn't just corporate. It was personal. The fate of the antagonists. Bradford Haynes, terminal manager. Bradford was in his office at O'Hare sipping coffee when his phone rang. It was HR. He didn't even get a chance to speak. "Mr. Haynes, do not touch your computer. Security is on the way to escort you out. You are terminated immediately for gross misconduct and liability exposure." Bradford walked out of his office into the terminal. The TVs at the gate were playing the news. He saw his own face on CNN, sneering at Marcus. The passengers in the waiting area recognized him. They started booing. Someone threw a half-eaten bagel at him. He had to run to the parking lot, covering his face. He would never work in aviation again. Greg, the purser. The flight landed in London. Greg opened the door, expecting the cleaning crew. Instead, he was met by 2 officers from Scotland Yard. "Gregory Stiles." "Yes." "You are wanted for questioning regarding an assault causing bodily harm. Please come with us." As he was led away in handcuffs, the passengers deplaning behind him, the ones who had witnessed the cruelty, cheered. Beatrice Calloway, the Diamond passenger. Beatrice turned on her phone as the plane taxied in London. It froze immediately. Too many notifications. When it finally loaded, her world collapsed. Her husband's company had issued a statement on Twitter. "We do not condone the behavior of Mrs. Calloway. Her views do not reflect our values." But worse, the internet had found her charity foundation was a tax shelter. The IRS had already announced an audit. Her socialite friends had blocked her. She was trending, #1 globally, but the hashtag was Beatrice the Bigot. As she walked into Heathrow arrivals, paparazzi were waiting. Not the kind she liked. These ones were aggressive. They shouted questions. "Beatrice, why did you attack a disabled veteran?" "Beatrice, how does it feel to cost an airline $4 billion? She tried to hide behind her fur coat, but there was nowhere to hide. Back in the boardroom, it was 11 a.m. Sky King stock was at 4,450. It was now a penny stock. The company had lost $4 billion in market cap in less than 2 hours. Arthur Pendleton sat in his chair, weeping. He was ruined. His family legacy was ash. Marcus Thorne stood in the lobby of the building, watching the ticker on his phone. He had made a profit of $300 million on the short sale in one morning. He dialed a number. Thorne Logistics Charity Division, a voice answered. "This is Marcus," he said. "I'm transferring $300 million to the account. I want you to start a new grant program." "Yes, sir. What should we call it?" Marcus looked at his reflection in the glass doors. He touched his bruised shoulder. "Call it the Right to Fly Legal Defense Fund. It's for people who get mistreated by corporations and can't afford to fight back." He hung up, walked out into the New York sunshine, and hailed a cab. He didn't take a limo, just a yellow cab. "Where to, Mac?" the driver asked. "The nearest hospital," Marcus said, finally letting the exhaustion hit him. "I think I need stitches." The collapse of Sky King Airlines didn't happen in a vacuum. It was a slow, agonizing suffocation that the entire world watched with bated breath. In the 48 hours following the incident at O'Hare, the company went from a legacy carrier to a toxic asset. Arthur Pendleton, the CEO who had inherited the empire, tried to stop the bleeding. He went on every major news network, CNN, BBC, Fox Business, trying to spin the narrative. He called it an isolated incident involving a rogue contractor. He promised internal reviews. He even offered a public donation of $50,000 to a civil rights charity. It was a mistake. The internet tore him apart. 50,000, one commentator sneered on live television. You just lost $4 billion in market cap, and you think the price of a mid-sized sedan is going to fix a civil rights violation? The real death blow came 3 days later. The Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, launched a comprehensive audit of Sky King's operational practices. They weren't just looking at the incident with Marcus, they were looking at everything. Maintenance logs, crew rest times, safety protocols. When an airline is under a microscope, cracks begin to show. They found that Sky King, in an effort to save money for executive bonuses, had been cutting corners on safety checks for their landing gear. The fleet was grounded. That was the end. 7 days after Marcus Thorne was dragged off Flight 919, Sky King Airlines filed for Chapter 7 liquidation. It wasn't a restructuring. It was a funeral. The headquarters in New York, once a bustling hive of arrogance and power, became a ghost town. Employees were seen leaving the building with cardboard boxes, some weeping, others furious. But they didn't blame the economy, and they didn't blame the fuel prices. They blamed the culture of entitlement that had started at the top and trickled down to the gate agents. They blamed the moment their colleagues decided that a hoodie meant threat and a suit meant value. While the company died a corporate death, the individuals responsible faced a much more personal, visceral reckoning. Marcus Thorne didn't need to sue them personally. He simply let gravity take its course. Bradford Haynes. The bully broken. Bradford Haynes, the terminal manager who had sneered at Marcus and ordered his removal, found that his infamy had a long shelf life. 2 weeks after his termination, Bradford tried to get a job. He had 20 years of experience in logistics and management. He applied for a position as a warehouse supervisor for a large shipping company in New Jersey. He nailed the phone interview. His resume was impeccable. But when he walked into the office for the face-to-face interview, the hiring manager, a young woman of color, paused. She looked at Bradford, then looked at her computer screen, then back at Bradford. "I know you," she said, her voice turning ice-cold. "I have a very common face," Bradford tried to joke, sweat prickling his hairline. "No," she said, turning her monitor around. It was a still image from the viral video, zoomed in on Bradford's face as he pointed a finger at the bleeding Marcus. "You're the guy from O'Hare, the guy who said the passenger belonged on a bus." "That was taken out of context," Bradford stammered. "I was following protocol." "We prioritize dignity here, Mr. Haynes," she said, standing up. "Please leave before I call security to drag you out. I hear that's how you prefer to handle things." Bradford remained unemployed for 8 months. He lost his pension. He lost his company car. Eventually, desperate and broke, he took the only job that didn't require a background check or a Google search. He found work as a night watchman at a scrap metal yard. He spent his nights in a freezing booth, guarding piles of rusted junk, a king of the garbage, just as he had treated others like garbage. Greg Stiles, the enforcer behind bars. Greg, the chief purser who had broken Marcus's headphones and escalated the situation, didn't just lose his job, he lost his freedom. The investigation revealed that Greg had falsified the flight report. He had written that Marcus was aggressive and physically threatening crew members before Marcus had even been touched. He had fabricated a reason to remove a paying passenger to accommodate a VIP. In the aviation world, falsifying federal safety documents is a felony. Greg was charged with filing false reports and 2 counts of assault for his role in directing the security officers. The trial was swift. The video evidence was irrefutable. The judge, a stern man with zero tolerance for bullying, sentenced Greg to 18 months in federal prison. The man who had prided himself on his tailored uniform and his power over passengers now wore an orange jumpsuit that didn't fit, in a place where he had no power at all. Beatrice Calloway, the social exile. But the hardest fall belonged to Beatrice Calloway, the woman in the white fur coat, the woman who believed her husband's money made her untouchable. She learned very quickly that money is fluid, but reputation is solid. Her husband, Richard Calloway, was a ruthless investment banker. When the scandal broke, his firm's clients began to pull their money. They didn't want to be associated with the racist of row 1. Richard was a man who loved his money more than his wife. 10 days after the incident, Beatrice came home from a spa day, where the staff had refused to serve her, to find the locks changed on their penthouse. A process server was waiting in the lobby with divorce papers. Richard didn't just divorce her, he destroyed her. He used the morality clause in their prenuptial agreement, citing that her public behavior had caused irreparable damage to his business assets. He cut her off without a cent. Beatrice Calloway, the woman who demanded a window seat for her dog, found herself living in a studio apartment in Queens, selling her designer handbags on eBay to pay for groceries. One rainy Tuesday, a year later, she was waiting for a bus. She didn't have a car anymore. A luxury SUV drove past, splashing dirty puddle water all over her coat, a cheap knockoff she had bought at a thrift store. She stood there, wet, cold, and alone, and for a fleeting second she remembered the man in the hoodie she had looked down upon. She realized, with a sinking feeling in her gut, that she was now exactly where she had told him he belonged. While the villains of the story faded into misery, Marcus Thorne did not rest. He healed. His shoulder required surgery and 4 months of physical therapy, but he used that time to think. He realized that destroying Sky King wasn't enough. Destruction leaves a void. He needed to build something to fill it. Using the massive profits from his short position against Sky King, combined with his own capital, Marcus launched a hostile takeover of the defunct airline's assets. He bought the planes. He bought the gate slots. But he didn't buy the brand. He launched Apex Air. The launch was quiet. No Super Bowl commercials, no celebrity endorsements, just a simple mission statement posted on their website: humanity first, flight second. Apex Air was an experiment in corporate decency. 1. The single-class configuration. Marcus ripped out the first-class cabins from every plane in the fleet. He reconfigured the seating so that every single row had extra legroom. If everyone pays to get to the destination, Marcus told the press, everyone deserves to get there with their knees intact. 2. The Thorn Protocol. This was the most famous policy. It stated that once a passenger's ticket was scanned at the gate, that seat was their property for the duration of the flight. No bumping, no overbooking, no exceptions. 3. The employee ownership model. Marcus gave 20% of the company to the employees. The baggage handlers, the flight attendants, the mechanics, they all owned stock. When the company did well, they did well. The result was a staff that actually cared. They weren't just workers, they were partners. 1 year to the day of the incident, Marcus Thorn returned to Chicago O'Hare. The terminal had changed. The Sky King signage was gone, replaced by the sleek, deep navy branding of Apex Air. The vibe was different too. The tension that usually permeated airports, the shouting, the rushing, the anxiety, seemed dampened here. Marcus was dressed simply, as always, jeans, sneakers, and a black zip-up hoodie. He walked with a slight stiffness in his left arm, a permanent reminder of the past, but his head was held high. He approached the gate for the flight to London. The gate agent was a woman named Sarah. She looked tired but was smiling as she processed a long line of passengers. When Marcus stepped up, she didn't look at his clothes. She looked at his eyes. "Good morning," she said warmly. "Passport, please." Marcus handed it over. She scanned it, and her eyes widened slightly as the name flashed on her screen. Owner, Chairman. She looked up, about to stammer an apology or call a manager, but Marcus put a finger to his lips. "Just a passenger today, Sarah," he whispered. "Treat me like everyone else." She relaxed, her smile turning genuine. "Okay, Mr. Thorn. You're in seat 14A. It's a window seat." "I like window seats," Marcus smiled. He boarded the plane. It was a Boeing 737, refurbished with the new interior. The air smelled fresh, not stale. He walked down the aisle. There were no curtains separating the rich from the poor. There were just people. He reached row 14. In seat 14B, the middle seat, sat a young teenager, maybe 18 years old. He was wearing an oversized hoodie, headphones around his neck, looking nervous. He was clutching a sketchbook. Marcus sat down in 14A. He noticed the boy's leg bouncing anxiously. "First time flying?" Marcus asked gently. The boy jumped slightly, then nodded. "Yeah, I'm going to art school in London. Scholarship. I've never been on a plane before. I'm kind of freaking out." Marcus saw himself in the kid. The uncertainty, the hope, the feeling of stepping into a world that might not want you. "You'll be fine," Marcus said. "The takeoff is the best part. It's when you leave everything heavy behind." A flight attendant walked by, a man named David. He stopped at their row. He didn't sneer at the boy's hoodie. He didn't check to see if they belonged. "Can I get you gentlemen anything before we take off? Water? Juice?" The boy looked at the menu. I don't have a credit card on me. How much is the water?" David smiled. "On Apex, the water is always free. And tell you what, since it's your first flight, have a cookie on the house." He handed the boy a bottle of water and a chocolate cookie. The boy beamed, his anxiety melting away. Marcus watched the interaction. He felt a lump in his throat. This was it. This was the victory. It wasn't the billions of dollars. It wasn't the bankruptcy of Sky King. It was this moment right here, where a kid in a hoodie could sit on a plane and be treated with dignity. The plane began to taxi. The engines roared to life, a deep, powerful thrum that vibrated through the floor. Marcus leaned his head back against the cabin wall. He looked out the window as the runway blurred beneath them. The plane lifted, defying gravity, rising above the clouds, leaving the gray rain of Chicago far below. He closed his eyes, and for the first time in a year, Marcus Thorne truly slept. Marcus Thorne didn't just win a lawsuit. He rewrote the rules of the game. He proved that the most expensive thing a company can lose isn't its stock price, it's its humanity. The staff at Sky King thought they were removing a problem, but they were actually clearing the way for a revolution. It serves as a brutal lesson for everyone. Arrogant power is fragile, but dignity is bulletproof. The next time you see someone in a hoodie or someone who doesn't look like they belong, remember Marcus. Remember that the person you judge today might be the one buying your company tomorrow. Call to action. What do you think about the Thorne Protocol? Should all airlines be forced by law to ban overbooking? I want to hear your thoughts in the comments section. I try to reply to the best ones. If this story gave you chills, please hit that like button. It tells YouTube to share this story with more people who need to see justice served. And if you haven't already, smash that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. We have a massive story coming next week involving a corrupt landlord and a hidden lottery ticket that you do not want to miss. Thanks for watching. Stay humble and fly safe.